Welcome to Right versus Left News, your daily briefing on the stories that matter, told from both sides of the aisle. I'm your AI host, Chris, and each day I bring you the most important political and cultural news, with perspectives from conservative and progressive voices. No spin, no agenda, just the facts and the opinions that shape our national conversation. Let's dive in. Here's what we're watching on Saturday, December 27th, 2025. Israel becomes the first country to recognize Somaliland, and the backlash is fast. Ukraine's president heads to Florida for talks with President Trump as Russia pounds Ukrainian cities. The FBI says it will permanently close the crumbling Hoover building and shift headquarters to the Ronald Reagan building in downtown D.C. States and Washington are squaring off over how to power a massive wave of AI data centers, and holiday retail sales look resilient, but with a big tilt to discount and resale. We'll break down what happened, what the right is saying, and what the left is saying, story by story. Before we jump into today's stories, a quick word from our sponsors.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values. Whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely. No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat.
Thanks to our sponsors for supporting Right versus Left News. Now, let's get to the headlines. First, Israel recognizes Somaliland. Here's what happened. On Friday, Israel formally recognized Somaliland as an independent sovereign state, establishing full diplomatic relations and inviting Somaliland's president to visit. Somalia condemned the move as a deliberate attack on its sovereignty, and the African Union, Egypt, Turkey, Djibouti, and Gulf states signaled opposition. The US hasn't followed suit. President Trump told the New York Post he's not ready to recognize Somaliland. On the right, conservative outlets, including Fox News, highlight Somaliland's strategic value near the Red Sea and its relative stability. They frame recognition, by the US or allies, as a way to counter Iran and China, and to extend the Abraham Accords logic into the Horn of Africa. You'll hear arguments that Washington should study recognition, basing rights and security cooperation in Berbera before rivals move in. On the left, progressive-leaning sources like The Guardian and Al Jazeera warn the move risks destabilizing Somalia and setting a precedent for unilateral secession. While entangling Horn of Africa politics with Middle East tensions, they stress international law concerns, note how regional blocs and Arab states quickly denounced the step and urge de-escalation and diplomacy. Next, Zelensky travels to Florida for peace talks amid new Russian strikes. Here's what happened. Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky says he'll meet President Trump in Florida on Sunday to discuss a nearly complete 20-point peace framework and US security guarantees. The announcement came as Russia launched a major drone and missile barrage that knocked out heat and power for parts of Kiev. The talks follow months of US-mediated proposals. Zelensky says the plan is about 90% ready. On the right, National Review and other conservative voices signal guarded optimism about a deal that could offer Article 5-like security guarantees without full NATO membership, plus a path toward EU integration, arguing a negotiated end that strengthens Ukrainian defenses may be more realistic than an open-ended war. Expect emphasis on leverage, timelines, and getting Russia to accept robust deterrence terms. On the left, the Washington Post and others caution that earlier US drafts sought significant Ukrainian concessions, and that pressuring Kyiv could reward aggression. They underscore unresolved issues, territory, the Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant, and enforceable guarantees, and warn that any ceasefire must not lock in Russian gains. Now, the FBI will close the Hoover building and move its HQ. Here's what happened. The FBI confirmed it will permanently close its deteriorating J. Edgar Hoover headquarters and relocate core headquarters functions to the Ronald Reagan building complex in downtown D.C. The Bureau and GSA first outlined the plan in July as a faster, cheaper alternative to a new suburban campus. Supporters tout billions in savings. Critics question security retrofits and the process. On the right, Fox News coverage and conservative voices frame the move as overdue modernization and fiscal prudence, shifting resources from a crumbling building to operations, while pushing more staff into field work. Some also like the symbolism of moving beyond the Hoover era. On the left, The Washington Post highlights pushback from Maryland and Virginia lawmakers and raises concerns about security requirements, tenant displacement, and whether the administration sidestepped Congress's power of the purse by abandoning the Greenbelt Plan. We'll be right back with more of today's news after this brief message.
This episode is brought to you by Family GPT, the AI chat platform actually designed for kids. If your children are curious about ChatGPT, but you're worried about what they might see, Family GPT gives you full parental controls, content filtering, and the ability to align responses with your family's values. Whether Christian, Muslim, Jewish, secular, and many more. Monitor every conversation, set usage limits, and let your kids explore AI safely. No ads, no data selling, complete privacy. Sign up free at familygpt.chat.
Thanks again to our sponsors. Now back to the news. Turning to power and AI. States cry foul as the feds push faster hookups. Here's what happened. With AI data centers driving huge new electricity demand, the Trump administration is pressing FERC to take more control over how big loads connect to the grid, arguing a national approach will cut bottlenecks and keep the U.S. competitive with China. State regulators call it a federal power grab that tramples long-standing state authority. Litigation is likely. On the right, pro-market voices argue Washington needs to streamline interconnections and transmission, or America will miss the AI boom. The Wall Street Journal stresses competition with China and the need to fast-track wires and generation, with some analysts saying the grid can scale if policy clears the way. On the left, progressive outlets and Democrats warn that rushed federal preemption could saddle families with higher bills and more fossil backup. Reporting has detailed rising rate pressures and climate risks from gas-fired quick fixes, while key Democrats urge FERC to make data centers pay their fair share. Finally, holiday retail, resilient but value wins. Here's what happened. Early reads show U.S. holiday retail sales up roughly 3.9% year over year through December 21st, with a notable tilt toward discounters, off-price, thrift, and resale. E-commerce kept growing while many shoppers traded down or delayed purchases. Analysts say consumers hunted value amid tariffs, a cooler labor market, and higher utility bills. On the right, market-friendly analysts highlight consumer resilience and see the results as a vote of confidence heading into 2026, arguing pro-growth policy, lower rates, and tax changes could keep spending solid. On the left, AP reporting and Big Four surveys emphasize that shoppers are stretching dollars, buying used, chasing promos, and cutting back in some categories. The takeaway: solid top-line growth, but beneath it more fragility and inequality pressures than headline numbers suggest. Quick recap. Israel's Somaliland move shakes up the Horn of Africa. Ukraine and the US edge closer to a draft peace plan even as missiles fall. The FBI trades Hoover for Reagan. Washington and the states battle over how to plug in AI's power hogs. And holiday shoppers show up, especially for bargains. We'll keep tracking what's fact, what's framing, and where both sides agree or don't tomorrow. That's it for today's episode of Right versus Left News. Remember, understanding both sides isn't about picking a team, it's about being informed. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, and join us tomorrow for another balanced look at the day's biggest stories. Until next time, stay curious and stay informed.